Jeff.
And I'm Marci.
Welcome to the Kind Faith for Couples. Thanks for tuning in this Christmas season. We hope that this will be a blessing to you and that what we have to share about being married and giving each other different kinds of gifts at Christmas will be helpful.
Right. So today we're going to talk about the gift of prayer.
And some of you just went, wah, wah. We have struggled with this our whole marriage. It's partly because there's this whole Christian ideal around relationships that there would be this incredible sense of prayer connection. And because we're so different, the way we communicate with God together, it's just different. And so I'll be praying and I can feel sometimes Marci going, I'm not with you. I just can't follow.
Right. And I learned how to pray very chronologically through the Acts prayer, adoration, confession, whatever. If I just lost some of you who aren't Christians or don't go to church, that's okay. And Jeff is just like, I'm just praying for whatever happens in the day. And so we
couldn't connect.
It was so different. We couldn't connect. Surprise, surprise, because we're completely opposite.
But prayer is such an important thing. And what we needed to be set free of was the ideal and the model that was held out. And it was a singular model. And there's a whole bunch of other ways to engage in prayer for your partner, and it is really a huge gift to give them and to give yourself. So that's what we're going to dive in and talk about. You have a scripture passage you wanted to talk about in terms of prayer.
So Luke 22:30 talks about where Jesus is saying, he's talking to Simon at the Last Supper, but it was one of the foundational verses for the kind faith, which is Jesus says to Peter, Simon, Simon, behold, Satan has asked permission of the Father to sift you like wheat, but I have prayed for you. So Jesus is praying for Simon, and he's praying for him that his faith may not fail, not so that he won't deny him 3 times, which we all know he does, but that his faith won't fail. And once you turned, that you'd be able to strengthen your brothers. So Jesus knows that his faith is going to fail, but yet he's praying for him. And it's like, if Jesus is praying that his faith is going to not fail, then I need to be praying for that for Jeff. That as one of my prayers for him and gifts for him this Christmas is to pray over him and join with Christ that his faith wouldn't fail.
And I love that idea of joining with Christ, because these marriages that we have, these relationships that we have, are actually a 3-part thing. God's at the center of it. And one of the things that struck me as you were sharing this was, I can join Christ. I can be with Christ. One of the things that I crave in my relationship with God is to be with God. Well, how do you get to a place where you're with God? You do what God's doing. You go where he is, and I can know with confidence that he is praying for Marci. And so we need to be praying together for one another and join Christ in that prayer.
Absolutely. That's so important. And the thing is that go to the God of the universe. So we talked about that, how Jeff and I are so opposite. So sometimes it's hard for me to be praying for him. And so God knows him better than I do. So pray that God helps you understand him, and that God gives you what you are to be praying for him, which is huge.
And this is the first part of this whole gift about prayer, because what we're presupposing is not just that God's engaged in interceding on our behalf and we can join God in partnership with our partner, but it puts us in a different kind of listening mode. When I'm praying for Marci, I'm not wondering, what does Marci want from me? What does Marci need from me? What can I do to help her today? All of those are really good questions, but it elevates my thinking to think about her whole person and begin to engage in a conversation or just a thinking process about her needs, her feelings, her moods, and what her days look like that don't necessarily include me. And it becomes a really powerful tool to pray. So give the gift of prayer, this first one, as we talk, be praying privately for your spouse. None of this is holding hands and praying together. Be praying privately for your spouse. And one way I've done that is I pray through the Lord's Prayer every day. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come. And I pray, thy kingdom come to Marci. And then I think about what it would look like in her day for God's kingdom to come as she works, as she has conversations with clients, as she engages with family here. Just pray for her, for God's kingdom to come to her.
Right. Prayer, like we said before, can be really complicated. And like we said, when we were first praying, we're so committed to, we have to do this marriage right, and we need to be praying together. And finally, we just gave that up and just prayed over our meals. But we had to learn to allow each other to pray individually, and however Jeff prayed was okay, and however I prayed was okay. And so we had to learn to meet in the middle on prayer. So just, you do what you need to do for your family, and don't be so dogmatic that you lose the point, which is to pray.
Yeah.
So you're not doing it right. How do you not do prayer right? You just pray, and however it is right for you.
And so we struggled to figure out how to pray together, and then we did land on praying over meals together. And every time we have a meal together, we hold hands and pray before that meal. It's not a long prayer. It's not all drawn out. It's not uber spiritual. In fact, early on as a young pastor, I was internally critical of how superficial those prayers felt. But no matter the content or the length of the prayer, it's an invitation for God to be a part of it. And that is a gift. And so maybe as a family, you need to start praying at dinner time.
Right. Maybe that's your first point of contact. And it's just, bless this meal, may it nourish our bodies, and bless our conversation. That's it. Or it might be just bless this meal.
Yeah. And I know that a lot of us struggle praying out loud. A lot of people have a hard time verbalizing their prayers. And give each other grace, and don't pray long, don't pray complex. Just pray quickly out loud, and grow into this praying together. Because praying apart for one another and then praying around meals is powerful. The other thing I found really helpful is we've always have some pretty big decisions on the horizon.
Right.
And using those big decisions as a cue to begin to call one another to prayer and say, we should be praying about this. Because sometimes I'll be caught up on the analysis, right? I'll get caught up in the analysis of the thing, and I'll forget that I'll be prayerful in the analysis, but I won't be praying in the analysis. And Marci will catch that and say, hey, maybe we should pray about this. And it's not trying to guilt me and not trying to be more spiritual than me. It's just let's hold hands together and bring this to God.
Absolutely. Even praying for this message. We kind of missed the boat on that one.
Kind of sat down and started recording. We're going to pray after, we promise.
So that's what happens, right? You get going in your day. But as far as praying over your spouse, like, pray for everything that's happening in their day, their work, their relationships with people. If you're a parent, pray for your ability to parent your child. How, like, for Jeff, he used to pray for me for my volunteer work at Caleb's school. And that's, great that you're giving, when he's talking about praying to God the bigger picture. Not that I would have, a great day, or I'd be successful in teaching my art class to the, kindergartners, which is a feat in itself, but that's a whole other story. So that God would be present at that time, and that there would be a bigger picture, that it would bless the teacher, that my faith would not fail. And that's what Christ is praying, that my faith would not fail at work, at volunteering, at church, at wherever we are.
Yeah. And so here's the gift. I hope you heard it. Pray privately for your spouse and begin to look at the larger context of your spouse's life and pray over them and for them, and join Christ in praying for them. Pray over meals. As superficial and as awkward as that can feel, begin to make that a habit of the point where you gather in prayer together. And then the last one is gather together and pray when you've got big decisions on the horizon, and engage in prayerfulness together. Prayer is one of the most intimate things we do together, and it can be hard to approach and it can be hard to do, but it's so rich and rewarding when we do.
And for some of you, this might be a really hard topic because you're not married, your spouse doesn't go to church, or that's just not, you believe that prayer is important and your spouse doesn't. And God calls us, and you might be fighting with your spouse right now, or your marriage might be really rocky, and your spouse may be your enemy. And even in that, God says, pray for your enemy. And what more can we pray for? That their faith may not fail. Because when your spouse is your adversary, faith is everything, and there's something in the middle of that is not right, and you need to be, only God can set that right. So we just encourage you to pray, even if your spouse is your enemy.
So if you can't do number 2 and number 3, do number 1.
For sure. I don't even want to talk about those numbers. They're like...
Well, thanks for joining us. We hope you're having a great Christmas season, even with all the COVID stuff going on. God bless you. If you would be so kind, we would deeply appreciate it if you liked this, if you would subscribe to the KindFaith channel on YouTube. You can go to thekindfaith.org and you can see all the things that are available there. There's messages, there's a Bible conversation with Tyler Allred and myself. There's this couples podcast. We would love to have you join in on the conversation and the comments. God bless you and have a great week.
Merry Christmas.
Bye.